Hi everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Perks of Being a Teacher. This week I'm going to be focusing on how to infuse mental health in your classroom, and I'm just going to talk about mental health in general and the importance of including it in schools and classrooms. This week I am filming it a little bit differently. I'm going to be going for surgery soon, and so I'm trying to record videos ahead of time. So that means I need to be putting in some recording over the weekends, and I thought, what better topic than mental health and to just film it at home. There are some things that, I'm not giving you a checklist today, but if I were to give you a checklist, these are some things that you could do that are like daily quick things you could do to include mental health. So this is not my message from this video, but for those that are like looking for some of those quicker things that you could do, I'm just going to show you like a bunch of pictures. I'm not going to describe them. I'll show you some pictures of the things that I do, and you can pause the video, take screenshots, and if you do want any copies like of any of this, everything is on my website for free. You can download it. So journal reflections are a great way to include mental health. Depending on the questions that you have, I would be sure to tailor your questions to the lovely humans in front of you. This is a medicine wheel reflection, so students would reflect on these 4 areas of their lives and record how they are doing in each area and possibly identify a space that's missing. Guided meditations, I do these sometimes to begin a class. Gratitude slips, coloring, and a variety of forms of breathing exercises. So like I said, this video is like not to focus on like those checklist things you can do. It's rather looking a little bit deeper at the person that you are bringing to your classes and how you can make tweaks in terms of your everyday practices and person that you bring to teaching each day. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about that I do in my classes is a mental health check-in. And I'm going to show the photo that I put up for students right away. In this mental health check-in, students choose which statement best aligns with how they are feeling. The picture asks students to record a color, but it's easiest to hand out blank little slips of paper or post-it notes for students to just write the statement on. So however they're feeling, they record the statement, they put their name on it, and then they hand it in to me. And I always do it at the beginning of a class and minimum once a week. When I get the slips, I look through them. If students are feeling great, then awesome. But if there's anything comes up where I'm thinking that the student may benefit from a conversation, then I will make sure to talk to them like that class that day. The next thing that I do for students' mental health is think about the workload that I am giving them. So by no means does this mean that my courses don't have that like rigor and hard work put into them, but I'm mindful of the amount on my students' plates. So if students have a lot of tests coming up, I'll be mindful of that, and I'll become like quite flexible on due dates. I make sure to give lots of class time for students to work so that work in my classes doesn't go into their evenings when they're possibly doing things that are good for their mental health. So an example is a student is part of a sports team and they have practice, they have tournaments, and if they have lots of schoolwork going on, that can right away take away from maybe like their enjoyment of that extracurricular activity. Lates. So in terms of like late assignments, I'm forgiving. Like I teach students the importance of handing things in on time and managing your time, but I also know that there are days where people, not just students, just need to lay in bed and they just need to take care of themselves. And if a student is choosing to take care of themselves over completing an assignment on time, that is like 100% fine with me. The phrase that I'll use a lot is like, what can I do to support you? And if a student wants to hand in something a different day instead of like the due date, I'll say, sure, like what day would you like to hand it in? And giving them the choice and when it would work best for them to hand something in, I think goes a long way. The next thing that I do in my classrooms regularly is I hand out this everyday achievement, certificate, if that's what I'll call it. I'll give you an example of when I'll use it in my own classes. So presentations are really hard for students, and they're hard for me sometimes too. And if a student tells me, you know what, I really don't want to present, say like my project, I don't want to present in front of the class, I will talk with them and I will try to give them like encouragement or try to like come up with some type of compromise, some sort of way for them to still communicate with the class instead of like a presentation that's up in front of the room. So if a student pushes themselves and tries to present in front of the class or presents in some way and overcomes like that fear that they have, this is a certificate that I'll give out. I'll be like, hey, I saw that you put yourself in an intimidating, a scary situation, and it's a way to say, I see you, I value like what you put yourself through, and you did great. The next thing that I do in my classroom to, reach students in terms of like mental health is to I talk openly about mental health. I talk openly about how I'm doing. So students are doing mental health check-in, I'll communicate with students like how I'm feeling, and it's not something that's hidden. I try to really decrease the stigma of mental health by talking openly about it. I also will show them a variety of videos that advocate for mental health in different ways. So for example, Brandon Marshall, who is a retired NFL receiver, he is a huge advocate for mental health, and it's also great to use a male figure talking about mental health as well. So he has plenty of videos on YouTube where he's talking about his own experiences, and that's just one example of how I talk openly about mental health and how it's not something that is to be hidden. It's a part of all of us. We all have mental health. When I began teaching, I had these little business cards and I handed them out to everyone, and on the back it read, "Teaching is a human act," and that is a quote from Paulo Freire. And this is a quote that has stuck with me all these years, and part of this quote connects to the idea of including mental health in your classroom, because teaching is not just about content, it's about the humans in front of you. And if you fail to recognize that mental health is a huge part of their lives and their well-being, then you're missing out on that human aspect of teaching. In order for teachers and students to really connect with one another, to trust one another, recognizing that it's not students in front of you, it's humans with real feelings, real experiences that matter, that is something that I think is crucial in having students fall in love with learning and actually want to be at school. So keeping in mind that quote, teaching is a human act, and reminding myself of that, that's not just a way that I'd say infuse mental health in my classroom, but that's a quote that I infuse within myself, as I'm walking through the walls of the school. That's something that is really always at the forefront of my mind, that the person that I bring to teaching recognizes that teaching is a human act. The final piece of including mental health in the classroom and the importance of it, the philosophy behind it, I connect it to Bell Hooks' idea of, she calls it the space of radical openness. And her work primarily focuses on oppression and race. However, this idea that she has connects to many parts of education. So the idea behind the space of radical openness is placing yourself at what she calls the margins. So the margins could be seen as the outskirts of a town, where like the center of the town is a dominant culture that all believes the same thing. And I mean, if you're talking about race, it would be that dominant white culture. But if you're connecting it to mental health and philosophy of education and pedagogy, you can see the center as this, I don't know, possibly like the traditional view of teaching, and how it's the teacher-centered idea where the teacher has all the knowledge and they're giving all their knowledge to their students, and the focus is put on curriculum in terms of like the center and that traditional model of teaching. Whereas placing yourself at the margins means possibly like removing yourself from that dominant culture and not looking inwards in terms of how can I be like that dominant center, but finding the joy in being at the margins. So being at the margins in connection to mental health means being that teacher who places the mental health of their students over and above that of curriculum. Knowing that if you as a teacher are investing that time and love into teaching and including mental health, the students are going to become more open to learning and more open to coming to school and wanting to be at school. And you know, the reason why I want to include this idea from Bell Hooks is the admiration that she puts into like being at the margins and seeing it as a great place to be. And you know, mental health, like I've said before, is not a checklist that you tick, tick, tick. It's rather like the person that you are, the philosophy that you have about education, and the person that you bring to your students each day. And you know, I can't speak for my students. I will not speak for them in terms of the like effectiveness of what I do, but I know that like I love coming to work every day because of the amazing humans that are in front of me. And my purpose, my goal in including mental health in the classroom is to make sure that students want to come to school, that they fall in love with learning, but also that they fall in love with themselves as well through this process. So this video is not to say, hey, if you like want to try mental health in your classroom, try it out. It's rather like insisting. It should be like clearly stating for you that at least like I think every teacher should be including mental health in their classrooms on a weekly basis in any of the ways that I have described in this video. I think it's crucial that we look beyond curriculum and into the hearts, the minds of the humans that are in front of us each day. So I hope you're able to pull something from this video. I thank you so much for watching, and feel free to comment below on anything that stuck with you today. Subscribe to my channel and stay tuned for next week's episode on perks of being a teacher. Bye everyone.